What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. My name is Ryan Lincoln. I'm here with my boy DT. We're talking Washington Commanders football, 7-round mock draft coming up here. Where are the Commanders going to be looking at the first round?
Well, the Washington Commanders could be looking at a lot of spots. This team after the 2024 NFC Championship game still has some things to work on, even with Jaden Daniels taking them all the way to the NFC Championship. A year after the year we had, it brings up some of the issues that we currently have. We clearly still looking at defense, still need a wide receiver two with Terry McLaurin. We don't know when the IU thing is going to get taken care of. So Washington don't need to be waiting on IU. They need to address some skill position players for Jaden Daniels while he's on his rookie contract. But most definitely, those are the two key spots, especially with cornerback and edge rusher. Even though they did sign Odafe Owe in this offense, it should not stop them from taking an edge rusher in this draft.
Yeah, 100%. So let's pull this thing up here. We're going to see what happens. We're on blitzsportsmedia.com. All 7 rounds are free. You can trade. You can do whatever you want. And sitting here at 7, the Tennessee Titans decided to go Ruben Bain. Carnell Tate went to the Giants. Mauga to the Cleveland Browns. And you're sitting here. And as you can see, David Bailey's gone as well. So Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Mansour, Delaney. What of those guys looks interesting for you?
Well, I think a couple of the names that have been trending with the Commanders as of lately has been, Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, Sonny Style. A couple of Ohio State guys have brought to their interest as well. And I know a lot of people have been screaming with the wide receiver position, but when you look at this wide receiver class, Ryan, it's a deep amount of class with talented players that can play the X, the slot, and other spots as well. So looking at this board right now, with Adam Peters, he's the guy that's always going to go with the best player available that can help the team. And, if a Jeremiah Love is there, you definitely have to run the card up with him, man. Despite some of the circumstances with the roster, if you're just getting better players, you need better players. And what Jeremiah Love could bring to the offense is, light boxes, helping Jaden Daniels in the passing game and the running game, giving David Blau, a guy who was a guy under Ben Johnson, his Jahmyr Gibbs per se. So that's definitely a big boost for the offense. And, they could probably look at a wide receiver later. And probably the second player you will have to consider is Caleb Downs at this spot. But you got to run the card off for Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, and I think if he doesn't wind up going to Tennessee, Washington is, the second most likely spot. Jeremiah Love is going to be heading in this draft class. I mean, a duo between Jaden Daniels and Jeremiah Love on the ground is a scary sight for defenses, that's for sure. And you put those two together, I mean, watch out. They're gonna be one of the top rushing offenses in football if they do wind up landing Jeremiah Love. And we're going through here, and Washington's got a little bit of a gap between some of their picks here.
Yeah.
With that gap, do you think it's any sort of pressure in terms of landing their 3rd-round pick, or how does that go?
It could be possible pressure, which is why I also think, considering with the news today, past couple of days actually, with Washington considering trading back to recoup a 2nd-round pick last year. Now we all understand, for everybody that's been harping on it, that 2nd-rounder has went to Houston because they traded for Larry Tunsil. So it's a great thing to have a franchise tackle who you just locked up this offseason as well. But you do understand there are still some spots, maybe like a cornerback in the top 100 you want to get alongside Trey Amos and Mikey Sanders. Maybe there's a safety that could fit Durante Jones' new defense that he's trying to implement that's very similar to a Brian Flores. So, you look at 71, that's a possibility they could trade from that spot, try to get 2 3rd-rounders per se. But, you're looking at the board right now, edge rusher, like we said earlier, that should not stop them. The cornerback room, a guy like Travis Sturks, who provides tremendous amount of versatility in the backfield for them. That's definitely a guy I would be intrigued right there at 71. He's a guy that can help the secondary for Durante Jones and do some things that he wants to do.
Yeah, and he's an elite playmaker. I think with him in there, he's 100% going to be able to go through, change that secondary. And I know that we mentioned Caleb Downs in that 1st round and his potential impact on this defense. Stukes is a nice little consolation prize in the 3rd round and a pretty deep safety class that can make the same type of plays that Caleb Downs has. And sure, he might have a little bit riskier of a floor than Downs with, where they're getting drafted. But Stooks is a ball hawk of a safety, and I think, and Dan Quinn would absolutely love to have a safety like that.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. And the secondary has been an issue for the Commanders, even though they have invested with a Trey Amos and Sanders. Still, they had both. Well, Trey Amos had a solid year. Got lost majority of the year to injury. Micah Sanders had a big downgrade year, and
Yeah.
from what the looks of it, they're hoping that the new scheme can revitalize Micah Sanders going back to form.
Yeah, and you talk about that new scheme. What should we expect that's a big difference from what they ran last year?
Oh, so it's probably going to be very similar to what Brian Flores does. Bringing a lot of havoc, sending a lot of pressure, having their corners on islands. You look at a defense like that with a Harrison Smith. When we talk about the safety position, he was the guy that was able to put guys in the right position to make plays. Where it was cover three, where it was man on man pressure, where it was zero blitz. There's going to be a lot of things implemented there. So a little bit more multiple fronts, 3-4, 4-2-5 with nickel. Some of the things that Brian Flores has done with probably a little bit of a different flavor to it as well. So that's what the expectations is with Durante Jones coming from the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, yeah, and we're sitting here at 147. We got a safety, we got a running back. What positions do you want to potentially target and for me to look at?
So right now, I think wide receiver will be a good spot for the Commanders to look at because how deep it is. Different guys with multiple skill sets, and you're looking for a guy that could potentially be someone that can help Terry McLaurin. And I think a guy like Deshaun Stribling out of Ole Miss, who's been rising up boards the past couple of weeks. He's 6'2", 209 pounds, run a 4.3. He's a guy that could be on the outside. You can put him in the inside to help with the passing game. We do know that Commanders did re-sign De'Ami Brown, Van Jefferson, and a couple of guys, but even with potential of IU being released in the summer, potentially being added, I still need to add to the wide receiver room. We wish we probably could have added a little bit more if we had traded back in the first round, but Deshaun Stribling, he's a guy that I would definitely take a chance on right here.
Dude, I love Stribling. He is my favorite day 3 target at the wide receiver position. I think he can be a productive wide receiver from day one, especially alongside Terry McLaurin, where he's not asked to have a massive role right away. I think he can develop into a really impressive guy long term for this team.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so we're looking at what our next picks are. Is there a specific position now? We addressed wide receiver, we addressed safety, we got a running back. What else are we looking at here?
The next position I'll probably look at between these next couple of picks will be center. Tyler Biadasz got released way before free agency, which was a big shock to the local media and the Commanders fan base based on his play last year as well. Maybe grabbing a late round center will be one of the biggest priorities. Nick Allegretti and Julian Good Jones will be competing for that spot, but you're going to have to get a center for potentially the future. And I know this name has not really provided a lot of confirmation like who this guy is, but when my evaluations doing draft shows, Bryce Foster is a guy that can fit what the Washington Commanders want to do with the zone blocking scheme. He's very athletic, has 50 plus starts in his career between multiple programs, and he's a guy that you don't have to put pressure on him to start right away, but once he develops and learns the NFL game, he can probably potentially become a NFL starter.
Dude, I love that deep dive right there. I don't know that much about Foster, but I mean, from what you said in terms of the scheme fit, I think once we get towards the end of the draft, like a lot of the players that teams need to be targeting in general have to be scheme fits. And, maybe they're like 320 on a big board, but if they fit the scheme at 180, it makes sense to go after those guys.
Yeah, most definitely.
So my next question is tight end. I know they added Chigakanawo. Is it still, the jury's out on another tight end or what?
I wouldn't say the jury is still out at the tight end position because they're still the biggest reason why Cliff Kingsbury and the other defensive coordinator was let go because they didn't really give a lot of the young guys opportunity, and that's a guy like Ben Sinnott. Ben Sinnott is a guy who was drafted in the second round, and they believe with the new offense, he'll be able to have a little bit more opportunities per se. But I also think with my evaluation of the last 2 years of Senate, he might just be, particularly an H-back guy that's going to be more blocking than what he was able to do at the college football level. But I think I would not be shocked if the Commanders either double dip at wide receiver or double dip in the cornerback room, because you can look at the cornerback room, it still has some things to be worked on. And the one guy that I have evaluated this year is Devon Marshall out of NC State. He had a very strong game against Florida State, multiple pass breakups, and he's a guy that could potentially fit this new defensive scheme, because the biggest thing about Durante Jones is he doesn't necessarily need star corners. If you look at the Vikings, they didn't have star corners, but they rely more on the safety room to provide answers against offensive coordinators. So he'll be a guy that I would probably stash in to double dip in the cornerback room.
I like it. I like getting that guy and adding a little bit of cornerback depth for the Commanders there. And, we got one pick at 224, and then I thought we had one more. No, so 224 is the last one for the Commanders here. Is it best available, or, maybe double dipping at wide receiver like you mentioned?
We'll probably go ahead and look at double dipping.
All right.
Well, not double dipping. Let's try to see what's best available.
All right, best available is actually Eric Rivers at wide receiver. Eli Raridan, tight end from Notre Dame. You got a few other wide receivers: Caleb Douglas, Aaron Anderson, Diego Pounds from Ole Miss, offensive tackle; TJ Hall, cornerback; Jalen Husky is safety; Jaden Ott, a running back; TJ Guy, edge rusher; Owen Heineke, linebacker from Oklahoma; Daquan Wright, tight end. Any of those guys jump out to you?
I think Rivers is a guy that, kind of funny. I did an article on him on the channel and stuff. Eric Rivers provides some explosiveness in the passing game. 4.35 speed. He can play inside out. He was very productive at his time at Florida International before he transferred to Georgia Tech. It was a big difference in production, but Commanders have strong interest in him as well. So this is a perfect time to double dip at two positions at premium at wide receiver. You got two guys who already signed 1-year deals. Potentially, we don't know what's going to happen to Terry Horn next year with the $34 million cap hit. So I would double dip and get a guy like Eric Rivers in the wide receiver room.
I love it. You can never have enough youth at the wide receiver position, especially with the turnover the Commanders are kind of going through in that room right now. And you're looking at our board right here: Jeremiah Love, Traden Stukes, you got Stribling, you got Foster, you got Marshall, you got Rivers. DT, grade our draft class right here.
Well, I look at it now, I'm probably going to say a B plus. There were probably some edge rushers we probably could have gone. Like we said, I don't think edge rusher that we have currently right now will stop them. But I think this is still a solid class because you're addressing with the secondary. The secondary is a big question for the Commanders. It's just as much as a wide receiver spot for the Washington Commanders. But you're getting a guy like Jeremiah Love in the first round, that light box, Jada Daniels, dread the run. That's going to make offensive coordinators grave and just drool over what potentially Washington can be this year. And, with the defensive, they've raised the floor defensively with the offseason so far. So it's going to be very blitz heavy. Expect a lot of simulated pressures with the Washington Commanders and some new guys to help with the secondary.
I absolutely love it. Jeremiah Love, Jaden Daniels, get ready to know those two Washington Commanders fans. I thought it was an interesting draft for sure. Why don't you guys let us know? Drop a comment down below what your thoughts were on this mock draft. Hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content. Me and DT will catch you all next time.